Hi, it's Mrs. King. This week in Language Arts, we are going to be talking a lot about realistic fiction and something called story elements. And we're going to be spending the whole week kind of breaking this down into parts to help you understand what all of this means. You just listened to the story called Enemy Pie, and we're going to use that story in a minute as an example for one of our story elements. Story elements are basically all of the parts that go together to create a story, realistic fiction. For example, think about yourself. You need your arms, your legs, your brain, your eyes, and so on for your whole body to work and to function. And the same is true with a story. Each story needs characters, a setting, some kind of problem, what we call the resolution, which we usually have called the solution. And the plot just means it's kind of all of the problem and the solution together. What makes the story a story? And so we're going to kind of break things down. Today, we're going to focus on the concept of characters. So, characters in a story, you probably know what characters are. Characters can be people or possibly animals in a story. We're talking about realistic fiction this week. So, what that means is the characters in your story have to be somewhat realistic. So, people who are talking, realistic fiction does not have talking animals or fairy godmothers or princess or magical creatures who speak. So, again, we're talking about realistic fiction this week. So, we're going to learn a little bit about story elements. And it says that a few storybook characters are visiting students. They have come to teach the students here about story elements. So let's begin by speaking to this young woman. You might not recognize her without the tail, but Ariel tells me that she is teaching students about characters and settings. Ariel, will you share your information with our viewers? Certainly. All right, so characters are the people or the animals who are important in a story. So it could be a real life family, for example. In realistic fiction, characters can be animals, but if they're talking, then it's not realistic fiction. It's more like fantasy or animal fantasy. Can you name any characters from The Little Mermaid? Let's see what we have. Here are some examples of characters from that show. We've got Ariel, King Triton, Prince Eric, Ursula, Flounder, and Sebastian. So those are characters in that story. Now, The Little Mermaid is not realistic fiction, but all of these different characters, animals and people, are in them. Okay, then within each story, we usually have what's called the main character. And the main character is the most important character who is present in the story from beginning to end. Usually they have the most speaking parts, and the makeup of the story is mostly about them. So, who is the main character in The Little Mermaid? If you said Ariel, you're right. Most of the story centers around her, and she is the main person in that story. Good job. Okay, what I want to talk with you about now is, there she is. I'm the main character. Again, you listened to the story Enemy Pie, and it was realistic fiction about a little boy who isn't really named. He doesn't have a name in the story. He's just referred to as the boy, and he's the one telling the story. But there are other characters in the story too. So take a minute, pause this video, and see how many characters in Enemy Pie you can name. Good. Some of the characters that you may have remembered are the boy, the speaker, Jeremy Ross, who is his enemy and becomes his friend. Stanley is mentioned. The dad is mentioned. All of those are characters in the story Enemy Pie. Who would you say is the main character? The one that the story is mostly about. If you said the boy, the speaker, you're right. Jeremy Ross is also quite an important character, but since he's not telling the story and he is not mentioned as much as the boy who's speaking, he would not be considered the main character. So hopefully that helps you understand characters. Tomorrow, we're going to be talking about the concept of the setting of a story, which is another story element. Have a good day.